Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Soul and Screen. In this particular video, I'm going to be doing a review on Tyler Perry's Zatima Season 3, Episode number 7. It is titled Losing It. So let's just get into it. So you guys, remember last video and episode, we leave off where Zach just found out from Nate and, from Nate basically, that Jeremiah did something to Fatima, and he walks off and he's getting ready to looking for Fatima at this point because he knew she was following him. So he comes around the corner and here Belinda all in his face, "Hey Zach," and he was like, "Ah," and she goes, "He always mad." Let me just stop right here and say this really quick. He always mad because he don't like you, girl. I don't understand this chick's problem. She be mad that Fatima ain't saying nothing to her and looking through her, and then Zach ain't talking to her. They don't like you. They don't want you around, and you keep forcing yourself into these positions and places where they keep running into you, and you just expect them to get over it. He always mad. The last time you was around him, you was trying to get him caught up to lose his woman. Yeah, he mad and he don't like you. You know what I'm saying? Well, that wasn't the last time because in season 2 he was around too. I mean, she was around too. But I'm saying, that's been her whole goal. So I'm not sure why she thought he was supposed to be like, "Hey, Belinda, what's up? Cool." Anyway, I just had to say that because I promise that got on my nerves, that scene. So anyway, she goes, "He always mad." And so he walks, Nate and Tony walk up to Connie and she's like, "What happened?" And he goes, and Tony goes, "This dude told, Zach what happened." And she was like, "Dang, why would you do that?" And Belinda, "Yeah, good. You should have told him." And so they just Connie just like, "Y'all shut up, whatever. Let's go." So Zach walks up to Fatima and Fatima's on the phone now, and he walks up to Fatima and she's hanging up. She's like, "I gotta go." And he walks up to her and she's like, "Hey, babe." And he's like, "Fatima, I'm gonna ask you this one time." And she's looking like, okay. And he was like, "Did Jeremiah hit you?" And she looks off to the side a little bit and he's like, "Fatima." And he was like, "Don't make me ask you again." And she was like, "No, he didn't hit me." And he goes, did he push you?" And she kind of looks again and she was like, "Well, no," and he's like, "Fatima, you lying." And she was like, "No, I'm not, Zach." And so, Nate way on the other side of the thing talking about "Fatima, you might as well tell him I already told him the facts." Mind you, Nate don't know one fact about this whole situation outside of something happened to Fatima. He don't know. And he even told Zach, he either pushed her or hit her. He don't know. And so Fatima cusses him out. "Nathan, shut the F up. You don't even know what you're talking about. And if you're going to tell him what, the facts. Get your facts right," is what she said. And so Zach turns around and he's like, "What's the facts?" And so she was just like, "Baby, can we please talk about this?" And he's like, "No, what?" And she was like, "Can we talk about this when we get home?" And he was like, "No, we're going to talk about it right now." She's like, "Zach." And he was like, "What? Fatima, come on." And she was like, "Listen, I don't want to talk about this right here." And he was like, "Why not?" She goes, "Because I don't want them in all my business." And he turns around and he goes, "They always in our business." And my point is, they always in our business because it's your fault. These is all his friends, might I add. This, everybody here except Belinda is people who are attached to Zach. And so for him to turn around and be like, "They always in our business," like it's her fault. I was like, boy, they in our business because you put them in the business. And so she's like, so he turns around and he's like, "Nathan, what happened?" And so Tony chimes in. He's like, "Man, just go home and with Fatima and and he goes, "No, you hush, Nathan." And so Belinda on the end, "Just tell him." Fatima cusses her out. "You shut up." And so Zach was like, "Nathan," and so he goes, "Fatima, Jeremiah did something to Fatima." Basically, again, he said he don't know, he's like, "But we don't know. We got to get all the facts and stuff like that." And so he's like, "Wow." And he goes, "When did this happen?" And so he goes, "A few days ago." And he was like, "Wow, a few days ago? That's what we doing?" And so he walks off and he is ticked. And so Fatima is like, "Dang." And so she's trying to grab his hand. And she's like, "Baby." And he's like, "Nah," and he, walks off and he just gets in his car and he goes, which is so funny because at the same time, you guys, I don't know if you remember from the last episode, she pulled up right behind him. So I don't know how he got out, but anyway. So she is like, he walks off and she stays there and she is heated. She is just like F. And so Connie is like, go after them, go after him to Tony. And so he's like, my car parked way down the street. And she's like, I don't give a F, go. And he goes, all right. And so he starts running. And then Nathan goes, I'm going too. And Fatima stops him dead in his tracks. No, you not. And so he was like, what? And she was like, Nathan, why would you do that? And he was like, listen, we can't keep stuff like that from him. She was like, Nathan, that wasn't your place to tell him. He was like, I'm just saying, you see how mad he was? And so she was like, so let me ask you something. Like, you supposed to be his best friend? He was like, yeah. And she was like, and so do you got a record? He was like, yeah. And so she was like, and so, like, and he's still not putting two and two together. She's trying to connect the dots for him. Like, you think knowing he got a record, knowing he can go back to jail and all this, you thought that was smart? And so she told him, like, Nathan, that just wasn't your place to say nothing. And he was like, I was just trying to do the right thing and do what I would want him to do. And so she was just heated. Fatima, she just cussing and she's just like, you always doing something. And he was like, he needed to know. And she was like, no, you always doing some stuff. Like, she tired of him at this point. That's why I said, I don't know why Zach think that Fatima is going to be cool with him being her baby's godfather. And so she was just getting ready to walk off. And Connie goes, Fatima, where are you going? And she goes, I'm going to find Zach. And so she goes, all right, I'm going to come with you. And Connie was like, Fatima was like, nah, Connie, I'm good. And so Connie was like, no, I'm going with you. And so she turns and looks at Connie and she's like, just come on. And so they walk off. And then Nate walks over to Belinda and she's, don't be feeling bad. You were supposed to tell him, you see how mad he is? And he's like, I know. And she was like, he's like, he gonna kill Jeremiah. And she's like, I know. And so he was like, we got to do something. And she was like, what we gonna do? Like, Zach family is effed up and all of this kind of stuff. This ain't none of your fault. Like, don't be thinking bad. And then she gonna say, come on, I'm parked over here. It's always some stuff going on, some BS going on. And I was like, girl, none of this got nothing to do with you. If you feel so irritated that it's always something going on, quit coming around because didn't nobody invite you. When I tell you, I promise y'all, Belinda got on my absolute nerves during this season in particular. Outside of the first season when she messed up, she just was seriously on my nerves in season 3 because she popped up too much, and I don't think that's respecting Fatima. Now, I understand that some people are gonna say, like Angela was telling her at one point in season 4, I think it was, like, if you was really her friend, you would keep trying. Maybe, but you still need to give her some time because it ain't like, again, you didn't step on my toe, you pushed up on my man. So I need you to give me some distance and I'll let you know when and if I'm ready to say hi to you again or anything like that. But right now, you don't need to be showing up in my face and all that kind of stuff because you pissing me off. Like, every time I see you, it's starting all over again. And I say that with all the love of the Lord. Get out my face. Stay away from my face as much as possible so I won't hit you in yours. And that's how I feel about it. Anyway. I'm just saying, y'all let me know what y'all thought about, Belinda's continuous pop-ups, sessions and stuff, and then always trying to act like she's just, upset and taken off, caught off guard by the stuff that's going on. I don't know. Did you guys catch that? How she was like acting like, dang, this is way too much. This is a lot. And nobody invited her into the situation. So anyway, you guys listen, it's a whole bunch of filler stuff that's going on. I'm just going to mention it. I'm not going to go deep into it, but so anyway, while Connie and them are walking off eventually, and then Nate and Belinda go their separate ways, and it picks up with Angela and Bryce. Remember, he had came over to apologize for getting snippy with Angela when she came to visit him at the hospital, and basically again just was kind of trying to see if they could be cool and everything. And so she was like, yeah, let's try it. And she's basically trying to tell him, you got to go because I got company coming over. And he was like, okay. And then there's a knock at the door. And he was like, oh, you mean right now? And she's like, yeah. And he was like, oh, okay. And it's Sean. And Sean is just like, dang, dude, like you already out the hospital? And, and so he was like, yeah. And so he was like, oh, okay. And so Angela is like, Bryce, you ain't got to talk about none of it. And so Sean was like, no, Bryce was like, that's fine. I don't mind talking about it. And she was like, Bryce, no, because Angela trying to get some. And so she just want Bryce out. Excuse me. And so anyway, he leaves, Angela ready to have sex, but Sean, remember, is like trying at this point to try to be with her. And so he's just like, dang, like, can I get something to eat first? And so she's like, dude, like, this ain't the soup kitchen. You don't just come here and eat because you hungry. Like, start coming over here full, basically, so that you can be ready to go, because you know what I want you for. And so anyway, that was pretty much it for them. There is you know what, I'm just gonna finish like the Zach and Fatima, and I'll get to some other filler stuff later if it's necessary. But anyway, so Fatima and Connie, the scene picks up with them. They're in a car and they driving around the neighborhood and they just trying to look for Zach, right? And so Connie gets a phone call from Tony, and she's like, hey, have you found Zach yet? And he like, nah, not yet. And so she was like, oh, okay. And he was like, so he's just kind of telling her where he's going to start looking. And so Fatima chimes in and she was like, listen, you guys, instead of looking for Zach, we need to really be looking for Jeremiah. Like, so if y'all can, basically telling Tony, if you can look for Jeremiah, then that'll be cool, because we got to hide him because Zach is looking for him. And so they like, well, you think so? And so she's like, yeah. And so he was like, all right. And so he was like, asking kind of her, like, do you know where to look? And she was like, well, I'm tracking his phone right now. And so he's headed towards, and she names the street. And Tony's like, oh, I'm not too far from there, so I'll just see y'all there in a minute then. And so she's like, okay. So they get off the phone, and Connie is just like, dang. And Fatima's like, what? And she was like, Zach really love you. And Fatima looks at her and she was like, I know that. And she was like, no, I'm just saying, like, he let you track his phone. And she was like, yeah, but he tracked mine too. So, it ain't that big of a deal. And she was like, no, that's love. And so Fatima goes, no, that's trust. And so, Connie was like, yeah, bet. And so Fatima asked her, she was like, is that a problem? And she was like, no. Connie was like, no, it would be a problem like if you was ratchet, basically. She was like, but you seem cool. And so Fatima was like, thank you, I guess. And so she was just like, no, like, you really good for Zach. Like, and telling Fatima basically she likes her, and she risks. This is where I say things changed a little bit for me, because she was respecting Zach's relationship with Fatima once she figured out that, like, yo, Zach is really trying to stand tall and stay, committed to Fatima, because she was always feeding off of Zach. So anytime Zach was having sex with her while he was with Karen and everything like that, she was feeding off of him. And so she knew that obviously he wasn't serious about Karen or anything, because if so, he wouldn't have been sleeping with her. Now, she pushed up on Zach plenty of times in season 2. So we know that if he really wanted to, he could have slept with her. And this is what I'm saying. I think in this season, she kind of tried to redeem herself by letting Fatima know, I respect your relationship with Zach. And this was the conversation. She was like, you good for him. And she was like, and she was like, telling her, I've never seen this side of Zach. And so Fatima was like, what you mean? And so she was like, I know, crazy, out of control young Zach, but you made him a man. You made him level up and man up. And she was like, yeah. She was like, but Zach still got a lot of work to do. She was like, no, I feel you on that, but I'm just saying that basically the work that I'm seeing now is because of you. And so Fatima was like, kind of like, thank you. But at the same time, like, she's side-eyeing, like, Connie, and Connie like, what? And so Fatima tells her, she was like, Connie, I don't know, like, you seem cool and all that. And so she was like, yeah, and I am. And so, she was like, I'm just saying, I got my eye on you though. And she was like, you could keep watching me. She was like, I'm the truth. Like, I don't, I'm whoever I say I am, I am. In other words, I ain't over here trying to be like, up in your face, acting like you cool, and then pushing up on your dude in a second, like basically letting her know I ain't Belinda, because now she know what happened with Belinda and everything. And so Fatima was like, all right, I'm gonna keep watching you and everything. She was like, because I know you don't know me like that, but I come from a family full of killers. And Connie was like, whatever. And she was like, nah, for real, but cool. So excuse me, they make their way to where Zach is. So let me get with Zach really quick. So Zach is walking up the street, Tony pulls up, and so Tony confronts him before Fatima and them make it there, and he's like, what y'all, he's like, Zach, and so he goes, what you want, Tony? He was like, nah, just let me talk to you. And so Zach goes off, like, I don't want to talk to you. Like, while, when I wanted to talk to you, I was asking you all this kind of stuff, and you didn't want to give me no information. Now all of a sudden you want to talk, and I'm good. And so he was like, Zach, we just trying to protect you. And he was like, you should be trying to protect Jeremiah. And he was like, no, Jeremiah don't have nothing to lose, but you do. And he was like, man, like Zach was mad. Like, how can you do this to me? Like, he hit Fatima. And so Tony goes, Zach, he didn't hit her. And so he goes, what did he do? He goes, I don't know, but ask Fatima. She trying to tell you. And he goes, I don't want to talk to her until after I whoop old boy tail because she lied to me. And so, again, Tony's like, man, she's trying to protect you. And he was like, that's the stuff that my mom did, like lied to me. And so I was like, whatever, Zach, like you gonna make that big of a jump that, Fatima and your mama lies is the same. Now, hear me when I say this. A lie is a lie is a lie. Hear me. So I understand the fact that in actuality, she lied and it ain't no difference. But the reason why is something different. Like Miss Gladys was lying to Zach to get high and get some money and get over. And she wasn't doing nothing to protect the Zach. Fatima, not the same difference. Fatima is trying to keep Zach out of prison because why? She want to spend the rest of her life with this man and have his baby there and not take her baby in and out of jail because the daddy gonna be there for about 20. Like who don't want that? You know what I'm saying? And so he's still not understanding. And Tony tells him like, yo, man, like you still got a lot of emotions going on and stuff like that. Cause he like launches off on him. Like, don't talk about my mom. You brought her up. He the one that brought the comparison of Miss Gladys up. And when Tony said something back, he got mad at him. And so that's when Tony tried to tell him like, hey, like your emotions are still like really sensitive and up and stuff. Like you just need to like chill out. And so he was like, nah. And so then Fatima and them start walking up. Fatima and Connie. And so Zach looks and he sees her and he was like, so you telling her where we are now? And he was like, nah. So he goes to Fatima. Zach talked to Fatima. He was like, how did you know where I was? And so she's like, Zach. And he's like, so she's trying to talk to him. And he pulls his phone out. And he was like this, and meaning he tracked me. And she's just like, baby, can we just please talk about this when we get home? And he's like, no. And she was like, okay, fine, I'll tell you. And he's like, tell me right now. She was like, okay, right now. And so he goes, now. So she goes, listen, first of all, Jeremiah did not hit me or push me. And so Zach is like, okay. And so she goes, he came up looking to my job, looking for some money. And we basically got to tussling and I lost my balance and I fell and I hit my head, the end. And he was like, okay, you fell and you hit your head. He was like, are you bruised, Fatima? And she was like, baby. And he was like, Fatima, are you bruised? Where is it? And he was like, take off the makeup. And so because he points to her where he thinks the bruise is, he was like, I was wondering why you got like a lot of more makeup right there. And so she's like, can we just talk about this later? And he's like, no. Take off the makeup. She's like, Zach, I'm not doing that. And he was like, are you bruised? And so she was like, baby, it's okay. And he was like, and he just like the look on his face, I promise you, it was so sincere. Like the bad part about all of this is I understand where he's coming from is wanting to protect his woman. You know what I'm saying? And if you really think about it, Jeremiah in Zach's mind, you already killed this woman in my life because Zach blamed Jeremiah. They both blaming each other for Mrs. Gladys's overdose, right? Like Jeremiah saying it's her fault, Zach's fault because he gave her that $500 or whatever it was. And Zach saying it's Jeremiah's fault because you should have been watching her. Like y'all be getting high with each other and everything like that. So in Zach's mind, you already hurt the one woman in my life that kind of meant everything, even though they had this love-hate relationship, is his mama. And now you just put your hands on my woman. So I understand Zach. Like you could see the anger in his face. Like his eyes was just like, yo, like because he was like, you expect me to go home after you just told me what he did to you? And she's just like, baby, please. And he is just like, nah. And so she was like, okay, you know what? I tell you what, let's go. She was like, because wherever you go, I'm going. And he was like, right. And she was like, yeah, so let's go. Where we going? He picks up his phone and he turns off the tracker and he walks off and she gets a notification. And so she's looking at her phone and she's like, did you just did you just stop me from tracking you? And she was just like, oh my goodness. And basically that was pretty much the end of the episode. Now, this episode, like I said, it wasn't a whole lot going. It was a lot going on in the scenes that happened, but it was a lot of filler as well. So there was a moment where Preston was waiting at Zach's house because they were supposed to be signing the contracts for, him becoming another partner in the business. And then Bryce ends up pulling up and they like sitting in front of Zach's house, like Zach doing what, not Zach, Bryce is doing what Belinda doing and not giving Zach his space and pushing up on him. Like, he was like, like maybe I should call him to Angela. And Angela's like, no, you should go over there because then he'll have to talk to you. Who said that? Like, I don't understand why people think just because you force yourself in my space, I got to let you in. You show up to Tiffany's house without calling and I don't like you, you will be talking to the door. Hear me when I say that. And you only got a limited time to do that before I call the police and tell them that there's a trespasser. Because obviously you're not hearing me when I say I don't want to talk to you, period. And so that was it. So they kind of stand at, Zach's waiting for him to get there. And Deja pushing up on Preston some more, of course. And then the other part of the episode was when Belinda and Nate were leaving the apartment, they actually ended up running into Jeremiah. And Jeremiah's like, Nate is like, Jeremiah, you better hide. Like, Zach just came here looking for you. And he's like, I don't care, And so Nate is like, you better care. He know about Fatima. And he was like, what about her? And he was like, her watching you, pushing her and stuff like that. And he goes, Jeremiah gonna say, so that's my brother. Now, this is another thing. Like, what that mean? Like, you think that he ain't gonna do nothing to you because you his brother, but you like pushed his woman down? Like, them got to be some good drugs if you think that was gonna cancel out anything. I'm just saying. So anyway, Nate is telling Jeremiah, like, you need to come with me and Belinda. You gonna come to her house with me and Belinda because we got to get you out of here. And Belinda like, he ain't coming to my house. He stank. And so they arguing. And so he was like, we got to take him, and he kind of tells, tell her, he tell her what's going to happen. And she listened while she trying to act like she ain't all into Nate and everything. I bet you she was like, come on and let's go. Cause I can tell you right now, if I tell you that this man ain't coming over to my house, he not coming over to my house. These women in these TV shows, well, the men too. And I don't know if it's just written like that because it's bringing some more drama into it, or if there are, don't get me wrong. I know there are a lot of people out there who don't say what they mean and mean what they say, but I'm like, I just kind of I've just never been that person. Let me say that. Like, you stuff happens and you fall, stuff like, I'm not talking about, something came up and I honestly can't get there on time or something like that. But I'm saying, like, when I really say that I'm done with you, or you cannot come over my house, or I need some time, I really mean I need some time. You cannot come over my house, that kind of stuff. And they say stuff like this all the time in these Tyler Perry shows, and they don't never, actually follow through with it. So I'm waiting to see when that's gonna happen, because I would really love that. So that's just it for me. Anyway, that was pretty much it for this episode. Like I said, it had a lot of meat in it, just because in the scenes that were with Zach and Fatima, because we finally get to the root of everything, and Zach finally finds out. And Zach has a moment with Tony, who is like more out of his two boys, he's the one that's more logical and has reason and everything. So he was trying to get Zach to understand. But again, Zach is full out in an emotional uproar and roller coaster right now. So he is just not hearing anything. And so I did like the conversation that he had with Tony, because it was real, and it didn't have to they didn't have to put up no fake stuff in front of Nate or nothing. It was just talking boy to boy and that kind of stuff. And so, I liked when Zach told, Tony, like, Fatima is my life, for all those Karen people out there who was just still wanting and rooting for Zach and Karen to get together, and he don't really care nothing about Fatima. He just really trying to use her to get back at, like, I just, listen, this man told his best friend, and there's no reason for him to lie, that Fatima is his life. And the reason why he about to go whip Jeremiah tail is because he hurt his woman. Period, point blank. So anyway, that was it for that episode. Let me know what you guys thought about the episode. I think, things are really going to start spicing up the closer we get to the mid-season kind of, well, season, 10, 11, you know what I'm saying? I was about to say it's not really a finale because the show already happened. So, but as we get closer to, further on into the season, the episodes get a little bit more meatier and things like that, and we start really seeing things come to a head. And so I'm looking forward to getting into the next few episodes. Anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Tell me what you thought about what I said about Belinda and her continuing to show up, and you know what I'm saying, and being all in Zach's face and wanting him to be all happy and stuff. Let me know what you thought about that. Let me know if you what you think about the Connie, you know, and Fatima, if you saw what I was saying as far as their relationship budding, excuse me, in that car, because they were like both, like at this point, I feel like Connie was starting to realize, well, not starting to realize, she was letting Fatima know that I respect you guys' relationship without actually kind of saying it, but just letting her know that I see the difference that you're making in Zach. I see the man that you are making him into, and the man that he's becoming because he's with you. And that was the reason why I always thought that if nothing else, they could be cordial. I wasn't sure until season 4 that they was going to actually try to make them friends, but at least they will be cordial, because Zach obviously, you know, still wants to be in relationship with his friends that, you know, he grew up with. And sometimes that happened. But here's the other thing. Sometimes you just got to let people go. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, you know, there's this scripture about keeping bad company. And it's because, you know, you can't continue to hang out around people, because it's usually not it's usually the people who are doing the bad things that influence the people who are doing the good things, unless you are solid good. Does that make sense? And I mean, like, Nate, he is consistently trying to get Zach to slip up. And so Zach, considering Zach is really in the beginning stages of him being faithful and trying this new faithful thing out, you know, because he ain't been faithful to nobody but Fatima. This is his first relationship where, from what we've heard, because we've heard that he's like cheated in all his relationships and stuff, like Fatima even said that, you know, before. So this is the one relationship that he hasn't cheated on. Yeah, I'm sorry, Ian. And now, you know, you got Nate coming around and just always trying to get him to cheat and stuff like that. So it's, you know, him wanting to be around and just cause problems. Like, I don't trust Nate. I don't. And him and Belinda getting together, and it just kind of made the perfect storm of two messy people who don't want to see two people who are in love together. So I honestly, I just wasn't cool with Nate or Belinda being a part of them, and why they keep showing up. Like, Nate keep talking to Fatima like he know her like that, like, Fatima, you know what I'm saying? And she's just like, dude, like, you always doing something. Is she right? You know what I'm saying? Like, you always at the heart of some issue between me and him. Like, enough. You know what I'm saying? And basically that's what she was telling him. And so anyway, just let me know what you guys thought about that, and we'll get into the comments and the conversation like we do down like I said, in the comments. And once again, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you guys over in the next video. Bye.